A rare off day for the Padres here in May, and excited to spend it with you this edition of the On Friar podcast after a busy week. Road trip to Milwaukee, on to Seattle. Really good weekend in Seattle. Promising first couple days back at Petco Park against the Dodgers. Bit of a bummer there on Wednesday in the series finale, and a day to reset and take inventory of where the Padres are at this stage of the season ahead of a weekend set against the A's. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp. How do we find you on this Thursday afternoon, Derek?
Good. Hungry. How about you?
Tired.
Tired and hungry.
That's why I need this. If you see me sipping this, that's why. I'm hitting that mid-afternoon wall right around now. But these conversations always give me a lift, no matter what's going on with the Padres. It's nice to be on here with you and to be on here with everybody who's watching and listening. And if you are one of those folks, please do not hesitate to chime in. We love to hear from you. And a lot to discuss. There always is after a Dodger series, Derek. Some good, some bad, and we'll kind of balance it all out and see where we end up.
No, sometimes it's all you can do. It's actually thoughts on some moves that both managers made that kind of tips their hand onto exactly how they feel about this season, this series, this rivalry. I was intrigued. I was very, very intrigued.
We call that a tease in the business. That was a very good tease, and we'll get to that right off the top. First things first, thanks to OG's, the sponsor of the On Friar podcast. Appreciate all OG's does for On Friar and the NBC7 sports team. If you're not going to be able to make it out to Petco Park this weekend, OG's great spot to catch the game. Tons of TVs in all their San Diego County locations. Great menu that they're constantly updating. They're always doing specials, and they have a spectacular beer list. So shout out to OG's. Appreciate all they do for us. Without further ado, the walk-up music. Wait, here it is. It is the On Fire podcast brought to you by NBC7. He is Derek Togerson. I am Darnay Tripp, and got shades of October in mid-May the last few days. Derek, two really competitive ball games, really three competitive ball games. As Craig Stammen said afterwards, the final score kind of made it appear a bit more lopsided than it probably really was. But all in all, you take the first game, you compete really through 2.5 games. You're right there in the standings. It's easy to be bummed out, especially after the way things transpired. That big at-bat by Fernando Tatis Jr. that ended very quickly and very poorly. So there's a lot to sort through, but you have me very, very intrigued. Unless there's somewhere else you want to start, the floor is yours to get into kind of some of the chess match, because we definitely did see that through the course of the weekend. Like, these managers weren't treating it like mid-May against the Rockies. I mean, the chess match was very much in effect.
Yeah, we'll go to the Tatis stuff in a minute, because I just got my blood boiling about that again.
Sorry about
I was talking to some folks today about that who are very much tied into the Padres organization, and we were all going. But anyway, no, it's first off, let's go to Tuesday night, because Craig Stammen, I think, made a rookie manager mistake when he brought in Mason Miller. First off, bringing in closers in non-save situations is always a bit of a dicey proposition in the first place, but he was obviously gassed, right? So that kind of told me that Craig was looking at this going, okay, even though when I talked to him up in Seattle on Sunday, it was, you know what, it's May, it doesn't really matter. It's close to first place. We're good. We're going to go see how we measure up, whatever. That move told me that he wanted to win that series. He wanted to win that series right there and then. The very next day, Dave Roberts. Shohei Ohtani had not been pitching and hitting for probably 2 months. All of a sudden, Shohei Ohtani is pitching and hitting leadoff. So the fact that Dave Roberts allowed him to do that against the Padres at Petco Park told us volumes about exactly where the Dodgers view. The Padres have the Dodgers' attention, very much so. So if he's going to allow that to happen he didn't do it against anybody else for his last 5-6 starts. All of a sudden, boom, he's allowed to do this against the Padres in May at Petco Park. That told me everything. And yeah, they downplay it of, hey, no, it's another series, whatever. Of course, it's a division rival. We're going to use a little bit more. No. They wanted, both of those managers wanted badly to win that series. And they tipped their hand on just how much it's going to mean, because as you know now, Darnay, there's no game 163. They're expecting this to be a dogfight all the way to the end. And if you are tied, guess what? It's your season head-to-head record as the first tiebreaker. So they both wanted to be on top of that one, because both teams now fully expect this to go right down to the wire.
That's a great point. And, you certainly understand that from the Padres standpoint. And, I think what you mentioned with Dave Roberts is maybe even more telling, that, they think this Padres club is real, and they've seen the Padres at their heels back-to-back years now, where August and September, mid-September, you feel like the Padres actually have a chance to potentially win the division if a series goes their way. I think they last played in August last year. The year before that, they go to Dodger Stadium in September. They clinch on the triple play, and they're right there. And then the Dodgers, I think, take the next two. And so, yeah, I think for you to say they have their attention, I think there's no question about that. They also understand, what that Padre bullpen is. And if you are going to have an advantage, you better get that advantage early in the game. You better have that advantage by the end of the sixth, before the 7th, 8th, 9th rolls around. You got to deal with, I shouldn't say Jeremiah Estrada in this case, Adrian Morejon, Jason Adam, Mason Miller in some order. And that's a real strength of the team. And trying to kind of figure out, like, how are the Padres doing what they're doing? Like, that's one of the answers. That isn't just the answer. There are a few different factors, but the bullpen and their ability to potentially lock down a game if they have that lead. Now, like you said, if it's in a tie game, different situation. And unfortunately for the Padres, I think it was 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position. Some hard hit balls on Tuesday. Ramon Laureano, Nick Castellanos. You think this is going to be the big swing that tips the scales in their favor. And then, Mason Miller's coming out with a lead, and you know how devastating he is. They didn't get those hits, and it comes down to the first error of Mason Miller's career, which leads to the first loss of Mason Miller's Padres career. And the nature of these games in May, and will be the nature of these games, I'm pretty sure they play in September and potentially even in October.
Yeah, that was, you could tell he rushed that throw just a little bit. You can also tell Ty France over at first base kind of rushed his approach a little bit ahead. A Gold Glove first baseman typically secures ball first and then makes a throw. They wanted to cut that runner down in a bad way. So both of them rushed themselves just a little bit. And that's, as we saw, that's just not the kind of mistake that you can make against the Dodgers. And we've talked about this ad nauseum, because then Andy Pages just has a tremendous at-bat against Mason Miller. I mean, Fallon pitches off, gets one just deep enough to bring the sacrifice fly. And that's something that the Dodgers do time and time again. They're so fundamentally sound in those situations. Something that we've seen, frankly, the Padres fail at probably more often than not in those types of situations, where the Dodgers is almost automatic. Someone's finding a way to get that runner home. And it's because somebody just got a little bit too quick, made that one physical error, and boom, they get you. That's how they get you. You don't have, with the Dodgers, you don't have to play perfectly. You just have to play clean. And if you don't play clean, odds are they're going to get you.
Yeah. There's a lot there. I'll start quickly on Mason Miller. Obviously owned up to it, said he rushed it, obviously wanted that moment back. And he said, it's the small things that win games, in this case, lose games. And, Mason Miller the night before, couple of walks down, maybe it's 1-0 to Will Smith. Duran challenges the pitch, gets a strike, and then Miller locks in right away, mows him down from there, secures the win. And, Miller was, talking to reporters afterwards, about, what happened there, where were you struggling early on? How were you able to kind of get it back into gear? And Miller he is so, I guess, kind of like boring in a good way, just sort of understated, doesn't say a whole lot, perfectly polite and kind. to us in a newsroom, but not, he's not going to give you a ton. He seemed like he was almost like kind of clenches his jaw a little bit. And I don't know if it was just the way the game went or I think some of it was probably like the line of questioning, because I think his own excellence has maybe become a source of frustration for Mason Miller, and that he had to deal with the record, all the questions about the record, the scoreless inning streak. And now whenever he looks human, we're all like, well, what's the deal, man? Why do you look human? Why aren't you striking out the side? And so and I think this is a hard thing we see in sports in general, is like when a player goes on a heater, like the excellence kind of becomes the expectation, which isn't fair. Which like he's going to give up a run. At some point, he's going to give up a home run, as crazy as that sounds. But that doesn't take anything away. That doesn't change the fact that he's probably the best closer in baseball. But now he's kind of having to deal with that on the end of like his historic run, where we've gotten so accustomed to him being just overwhelmingly dominant, where it's like he's going to walk a couple guys here or there, but he's also going to get out of it. And if it were any other closer, we might not blink an eye.
No, not even close. And I mean, I remember I was watching the game with my wife, and I could tell just from watching it on TV, I'm like, he's rushing, right? His lower half and his top half are not in sync, right? His fastball, threw 99-mile-an-hour fastballs. I think the adrenaline and his first time really having a chance to get a save against the Dodgers in that situation, first place on the line, it's like I think he was probably getting a little bit too quick because his top half and his bottom half were out of line. What happens? Ruben Niebla comes out. He Jedi mind tricks him. Duran gets the challenge, and then boom, it was like 10 straight strikes right after that, something like that for Mason Miller. Ruben has a way of going out and getting guys right back in line, and they need that one thing to break for him, and then boom, they're right back on track.
Yeah.
So that was what happened with him on Monday. On Tuesday, he would, like I said, he was just a little bit tired. He went out there, he worked a lot. And he had his last outing in Seattle, he had to work a lot too. He hasn't had the one pitch away from an immaculate inning that he had going on a little bit earlier. He's fighting his command a little bit. Now his stuff is, as you know, more than enough to overcome that. But again, against a team like the Dodgers, who does not chase very often, they make you come in the strike zone. They don't beat themselves. This is a nice learning experience for him. And you're right. Sometimes he's a guy who's always going to be very honest about things. So I think the jaw clenching you were mentioning was like, I want to say something right now, but I probably need to keep it under wraps.
Yeah.
Probably in terms of the conversation he had with Ruben. But you're absolutely right. Like, we expect him now to be so Kryptonian that nothing can ever touch him. And that's not the case, right? He's going to be great. He's always going to be great, but there will be times when he looks mortal. And we just need to accept that, because it's going to be 4 times a year. The rest of the time we'll enjoy him being incredible.
And, if there's, a silver lining to the way Wednesday's game turned out, it feels like in games like that, to beat the Dodgers more often than not, it's going to come down to the wire. It's going to come down to a save situation. Didn't get into that spot on Wednesday where you need to throw him. Day off Thursday. It could go either way. Either team gets blown out. You're not going to see Mason Miller. In a perfect world, Padres win like a 7-2 game on Friday. Don't need Mason Miller, and you're looking at 3 straight down days. If they can do it again on Saturday, and then we start having one of these stretches where we're like, wow, Mason Miller hasn't pitched a while, I think that's probably a good thing, because the nature of this Padres team and how they've won games has necessitated Mason Miller being on the mound a lot. To the point that it's become a conversation, and was something that Craig Stammen talked about, just trying to find kind of, again, that balancing act of like, how often do we run this guy out there knowing how good he is, how important he is to this team, but knowing for his health, long-term, long season, not putting your spot where you're jeopardizing any of that.
Yeah, exactly. Every now and then he's thrown a lot. He's thrown a lot of innings, he's thrown a lot of pitches, and he's a max effort guy. He's out there. He's giving you everything that he has at any given moment. So yeah, getting him. You got 2 days off already, and you're right. Getting that 3rd day off, if they go out and handle his former team fairly handily, would be very, very nice, because then you can use him Saturday, you can use him Sunday, you can use him Saturday, you can use him Monday, Tuesday. It opens you up to a couple other different possibilities. Probably it also it gets him back on track. And these off days at home, by the way, are so beneficial to ball players because they get to hang out around their house. They're not worried about packing or having a day off in another city or getting to a plane or wondering what they're bringing to the ballpark. They get to just be human beings and just kick it at their house for a day. Like it can be a really nice to help them reset mentally. So hopefully just having a day off at home and having to worry about anything, hang out with the missus, that I think will help him maybe even more than the physical rest is the mental and emotional break.
Needleman asking, should Ty France not have caught that throw from Mason?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier was, Ty is a Gold Glove guy. And again, I think he didn't quite typically he gets up and secures the ball first, then makes he was trying to get quick with it to get the ball out to make sure he got the runner. It was both guys just going too fast, caught up in the moment, trying to move too fast.
Somebody in the clubhouse, I forget who, was saying if Gavin Sheets was in, he might have caught that because he's got a little bit more of a
little more of a wingspan
than Ty France does.
He also has the glove on the other hand.
That's true. Not having to reach across. So,
yes.
Yeah, but I think, if Mason Miller were joining us having this conversation, he'd probably say, I got fast. I didn't need to throw him 95 to the bag.
Oh, well, both guys are going to say that. Mason's going to say I could have made a better throw. Ty's going to say I should have caught the ball. That's how teammates are, and I guarantee they both fully believe that too.
Okay, so going back to what you were saying about the Dodgers approach and that Andy Pages at bat, it's funny because I thought from the very beginning, Tatis and Duhar in the first inning, I think forced, especially Andujar, forced Ohtani to throw 22 pitches in the first inning. And you're like, okay, 1, 2, 3 inning, but he's not on pace to throw 7 innings. He was averaging a touch over 90. He's made it to 100, but touch over 90 per start. And that's kind of how the game went on. And so I think, again, the game within the game, which I think was so important, is to run up Ohtani's pitch count. And they did a good job of that it mattered in the flow of the game. It didn't necessarily matter in terms of when Ohtani exited because he was done after that Tatis at bat. I want to say that was his 88th pitch. But there is a different feeling between Dave Roberts having to come out and get Ohtani because Tatis just drove in a pair of runs or walked in a run, from Ohtani stepping off the mound after getting that double play and a roar from the Dodger fans that were in Petco Park. And that approach that they had, they stuck to pretty well those first 4 1/3 innings until the biggest at-bat of the game. When the base loaded, Fermin just drew a walk, 87 pitches, and you have a chance to nail in the coffin for Ohtani's evening. First pitch, sweeper outside, double play. And that was, it is a recency bias thing. I don't know if it's the worst plate appearance of the season, but it's in the conversation. I will say probably to this point the most deflating, because being at Petco Park, the air went out of that building with the exception of Dodger fans, a loud roar. The team had no life after that, and the building had no life after that, and it ended up being a 4-0 loss.
That pitch selection. Oh my God. I was at my daughter's softball game. Right, they're playing a CIF right now, and of course, being the good father that I am, was there in body but not in spirit because I was also watching the Padre game on the phone. Parent tape are going to do that when they get older, Darnay.
Oh yeah.
And people can confirm the second that Fernando Tatis Jr. swung at that pitch after a walk. Okay, hey, first of all, there's 1 out. If you're going to make it, you're going to get a ball in the air. All right, you want something up? Just get a ball in the air. At least get a sacrifice fly out of it. Get a run somehow. All right, to take a sweeper down and a sweeper period, and swing at it first pitch. I don't care if you're looking for. You don't do that first pitch. You don't do that. He'd been struggling with Ohtani was starting to struggle with his command a little bit. He had just walked Freddie Fermin. So he's being a little bit too careful with him. He is not going to give in to you with the first pitch. take the first, unless you go up there, it's like 3-0. You say, I'm looking for a fastball, middle in. If I don't get that, I'm not swinging. And for him to do that, I grabbed my hat and I threw it down and I walked around this parking lot and I went, yeah, this does not look good. This is bad parenting. And I couldn't help myself because it was so, for somebody who was so insanely talented as Fernando Tatis Jr. to be that insanely stupid in a plate appearance where he's supposed to have this baseball savant IQ, just to do that, it shows something's so wrong that he's either he's pressing or he doesn't care or he's not thinking or he's just lost all feel for the game. I don't know. I don't know what it is. To do that in that situation was inexcusable. Absolutely inexcusable. And I don't know where to go from here. I really don't. He'd better not be hitting leadoff ever again. Ever again. Like he doesn't deserve it. Explain how he deserves it. Also, I want to get something that our friend Chip Rocks asked. You see Tatis during batting practice for the game. Is he hitting home runs during BP, or does he actually suck this bad he can't even do that? He does hit home runs during BP. That's the weird thing. His swing is completely different during batting practice. He's actually got some loft to it. He's hitting the balls out of the ballpark in batting practice. And he gets in a game, and it's like he's Luis Ariz. This is ground ball machine. And I'm going, what is going on? It makes no sense. He is a completely different player in batting practice than he is in the game. And it's almost like something takes over or another person. I don't know. I just don't know.
Our buddy Rafa. Chapman for Tatis straight up. Who says no?
Which Chapman?
Well, there was the reporting from Ralph is actually a Giants fan. So I'm guessing it's Matt Chapman in this case. But my mind was on Aroldis because Dennis Lin of The Athletic with some reporting today that AJ Preller, as AJ Preller is wont to do, building on his strength with the bullpen. We've seen him do that before. And apparently that is up in the air at the moment as a possibility. And he mentioned Aroldis Chapman. He mentioned Josh Hader, which that'd be
Josh. No, stop.
Making a lot of money is Josh Hader. So that wouldn't, I don't know if that really makes sense in terms of the books, but adding to his strength. But I'm guessing Rafa here is talking about Matt Chapman. I don't know what kind of season Matt Chapman is having right now. I know Casey Schmidt homered a bunch of times last time we saw the Giants, but.
Well, what position does he play?
Great question.
Third base. Yeah. So
yeah.
What position does he play here? You're not moving.
Yeah.
You're going to move Manny off third? You're going to move one of them, no. That doesn't make sense from a roster spot. Plus, he's not hitting anyway.
Yeah, it's bad. And I think there was even one yesterday where in the press box, I kind of like inadvertently did one of those because he just caught it off the end of the barrel and just like a nubber, just kind of rolling, not going anywhere, not going to amount to anything. You're like, oh my gosh, is this really happening this way? Like it's gotten to the point where it's kind of predictable. It's like hard grounder left side off the end of the barrel dribbler. How many of his hits in the last week or in this series were, just a dribbler that didn't get to the infielder in time to throw him out, or an error or that sort of thing. Like, Stammen even had, he was going back and forth with Barry Bloom a little bit on, I can't remember if it was Monday or Tuesday. And Stan was like, well, he had 2 hits. And Bloom was like, yeah, but you saw the hits. And Stan was like, hey, there's no pictures in the back of the baseball card, which is true. But, Tatis isn't Tatis because he can leg out a bunch of infield singles. That's a nice thing that he can also do on top of hitting nukes. And that part has obviously been absent from his game. And, it was interesting yesterday, Stammen talked about it again, or was asked about it again. Xander Bogaerts had a great sound bite. Like, Marty Caswell asked him about it. And he's like, I was just talking with Manny. And I was like, Manny, have you ever had a homerless streak, like 100 at-bats? And Manny, of course, answers like, no. But Bogaerts is like, I had one that was like 200. And just, talked about how tough it is and how difficult it is to be in the spot. And you're just begging for anything to go over the fence. And I don't know. It felt like a few weeks ago You heard people saying he's close, he's stinging the baseball, blah, 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 just a slight swing adjustment. And then a week goes by, and 2 weeks go by, 3 weeks goes by, and it feels like he's drifting further and further away from that. You're just like, I don't even know where he is right now. I don't know if there's like reason to be optimistic. There was reason to be optimistic at a point that it was going to click. I don't know if you can look at what's been going on and feel that way at this point.
You remember the opening scene of the original Top Gun where Cougar just lost it and he couldn't get it back? Is that Fernando Tatis Jr. now? Where he's like, you don't know he's lost it. He can't mentally. Yeah. He's so far gone that he'll never come back.
I don't know if I'm there, because I mean, I feel like,
I mean, the fact we're even entertaining this line of questioning is freaking scary.
Well, and it's like, how weird is it if he just ends the year with like 4 home runs? Like, he does eventually hit a home run.
Well, if he got to 4, I'd be ecstatic.
But
because he hasn't hit one in the first quarter of the year. That means one every quarter. That'd be awesome.
I don't know if that's really any better, depending on when those home runs come in a game. It's just bizarre. And I mean, you're the baseball encyclopedia. Is there another example of this? And Tatis is a complicated player with a complicated history, so all that plays into it as well. Yeah. But is there a good example of because when Tatis is going, he's one of the game's best talents. Like, one of the game's best talents just straight up losing it in the middle of their prime. He's not 34 years old, in the middle of what should be his prime, it just disappearing like this. Okay.
When you put it that way, it does kind of remind me of like a Rick Ankiel or a Mark Wohlers, how in the middle of their careers, really good pitchers, all of a sudden, they can't find the strike zone. They can no longer throw strikes. They don't, for whatever reason, they lose their ability to throw. The back. Ankiel had to go be an outfielder because he couldn't throw. He was one of the best young left-handed pitchers in the game at one point. And then from out of nowhere, he couldn't throw strikes. And it's kind of like a golfer getting the yips. There's no reason for it. There's no rhyme. There's the swing looks the same. The thing, just something just happens. Something breaks inside them that they can't do it anymore. And might this be the offensive equivalent of that, where you just all of a sudden from out of nowhere something breaks or changes, and you can never put your finger back on why that is. And instead of not being able to find the strike zone or throw strikes, you can't hit the ball in the air. You can't hit the ball in the air with authority. I don't know. I'm not familiar with any stories like that. Aside from guys who were stopping taking steroids. Those are the only stories but it's like guys go from 36 homers to 14. It's not this. It's not, especially all of a sudden out of nowhere, just this precipitous drop where there's nothing left.
Yeah. And 2024 happened, parts of last year, parts of 2023, it'd be one thing if the suspension was last year. That's where I put a lot less stock into that, because we've seen it, it has existed, and for whatever, and maybe it's just emotionally he has a tough time stopping the snowball once it gets going downhill, which I think we've
seen that many times. Yeah.
And so maybe if he could snap his fingers and go back to mid-April, he'd be able to get out of it. Maybe, but the fact that it went for mid-April, it had been 5, it never took him longer than 5 games before this year to hit his first home run. So 2 weeks, and then 2 weeks becomes a month. And now we're sitting here a month and a half plus, quarter of the way plus into the season, where it's become such a thing that it is even more difficult to kind of, anybody who's dealt with any sort of anxiety or yip or anything that's just bugging you, oh my gosh, I can't shake this thing, it just gets worse and worse and worse and becomes bigger and bigger of a mountain. You're like, oh, how do I get over this thing? And it's a heck of a thing for him to go through with the spotlight that he's dealing with everybody knows it's the first question, it's the first topic of conversation. And, I wanted to ask Sander, and I didn't feel like it was the right opportunity, but like, how do you handle it as a teammate? Because you want to be there and encourage and support the guy, but you don't want a million voices in his head and be like, hey, think about this. If you've golfed with a buddy and you're struggling and he starts to annoy you with all these like swing tips, you're like, just shut up and let me grind my way out of this, please. Like, so how do you balance all that be a good teammate, be supportive, but not be annoying and have too much rattling around his head? Like, I think it's got to be difficult for those guys too.
Well, they also know what an asset he is and how much they need him to win a World Series. They need him to be him, so they have got to be cajoling him, begging, pleading, just be you. Be you. And I'm pretty sure they're not talking about swing tips. They're not talking about put your hands here, get your. I guarantee you they're saying, get the hell out of your dome. Get out of your head. Stop. Whatever this nonsense is, stop it. Grow up for a minute. Go out there and just do you. Have fun playing the game. Right now, it looks like Fernando wants to be anywhere except a baseball field. And that's not him. That's not who he is. There's no dancing, having fun. Even when he goes out to wave hi to the people when he's playing right field, like it looks like he's just going through the motions. That connection, that joy is not there. He don't want to do this right now. If you don't want to do something, then it becomes a job. And if you're doing a job, then you get bitter and you don't want to get any better at it. And you just don't care. You start going through the motions. That's how it looks and feels right now. So they're absolutely giving him, guys, as a teammate, we need you, man. We got to have you. You got to find your way through this somehow, some way, somewhere. We can't go to where we want to go without you.
Yeah.
So, suck it up and figure it out.
I mean, by all accounts, he's working. I mean, that's one thing Xander said yesterday. Like, the kid works. He's working at it. He's trying to figure it out. I do like, I was thinking yesterday, I was like, I would love to see Fernando just take a bat to a Gatorade jug. Like, just to show some emotion. Like, Manny did it a few years ago. I think it was when his elbow was bothering. I want to say it was like Colorado or something like that. And just struck out or something and took his frustrations out on. We've seen it a million times in baseball. Mm-hmm. And, it's like high or low, like the emotion has kind of been absent. Like, and it's funny, like we've talked about Tatis needs to be measured and consistent and yada, yada. This is one of those situations where I'd like to see him like Luke Voigt drop like an F-bomb that's audible to the folks in the 300 level. You can hear it clear as day on the TV. Try and snap a bat over your leg, take out a gate, or disappear into the, dugout for the clubhouse for a little while. You're like, I can guess what's going on in there. Mm-hmm. Everybody deals with their own stuff their own way, which is fine. But, sign of kind of some of that like emotion, anything to just kind of like get him going, good, bad, or different, I think would be useful, but that's just me.
Yeah, to show he has some sort of life in there. Yeah, that's good. Now I guess there is something to be said for, credit for staying professional and, not letting that happen. But you're right, man. At this point, it might just be cathartic. Just go Bo Jackson on something and just to break something over your leg or over your head or over the dugout or, go just demolish the batting cage, something. Do something. As long as nobody else gets hurt doing it,
Sure.
it is go crazy.
Yeah.
Go crazy. Take a machete to a Gatorade cooler out, whatever you got to do.
Our buddy Chip rocks. I also have a bone to pick with Stam, and he went on record before the season saying that he would confront any player not pulling his weight. Still waiting for that to happen. I mean, I think we've seen some movement in the lineup. So,
yep.
Manny's, he's still in a premier spot hitting cleanup. But I think that's probably appropriate. Merrill's moved down. Tatis moved down for a little bit. And I mean, your point is well said and well taken in terms of Tatis hitting leadoff. My issue with that is like if Jerks and Profar was on this team, if Luis Arraez was on this team, if there's a really good option, I'd say, yeah, 100%. I just don't know if there's a good enough option right now where it makes sense to pull him off of it, even in the midst of his struggles. Where do you put him, and then who's in that spot, and what does that look like? That's Miguel Andujar. Maybe Miguel Andujar is the guy. I think you mentioned him recently. Maybe that might actually be a good answer. But that's, I think, the thing that gives me pause from that standpoint.
Yeah, I think at that point, what I'm saying is not so much from a production standpoint as it is you got to challenge this guy a little bit. You know, exactly what Chip Rocks is saying there. Like, you got to challenge the manhood a little bit. Be like, no, you haven't proven you can do this. We're going to take you and we're going to put you 8th. You know, almost like a little bit of a public embarrassment, where it's got to be your production dictates where you hit, not your talent level, not your potential, what you're doing, what you've done. And this is no longer a small sample size. He doesn't deserve to be ahead of 6 other guys in that order. He just doesn't. And then when Camposano gets back, it's 7 guys. So I don't see how you can justifiably continue to give someone who has the spot in the order that gets the most at bats throughout the course of a season to somebody who's showing that they can't handle those at bats and help the team. I can't reconcile that.
Yeah, I guess my response is like, I feel like every game right now feels like a public embarrassment for Fernando Tatis Jr. Like every game.
Yeah, but he's doing that to himself. Now someone else has to jump on the bandwagon.
Yeah, I mean, is he? I don't know is it because of his own like you said, like not putting in the work or this or that, or is it just like he's completely out of whack and lost and mentally gone? Like, I think it's more so that than like a dereliction of duties, you know? And so but
at this point, does it matter?
It might not.
Right. That's the thing. He's right. He works hard. He's out there taking batting practice off the high velocity machine. He's like Vander said, I agree with it. I've seen it firsthand. He puts in the work. It's not working.
Yeah.
So until maybe it'd be better for him until he figures it out, get him out of there. And then when if he figures it out, then you move him back up. But for now, with what he's giving you, you can't keep banking on potential and eventually you think he's going to break out of it. You can't keep doing that.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see when the lineup card comes out Friday. And it's ended up becoming one of the more interesting parts of the day because you don't. Last year you knew. This year you don't. You just don't know.
Mm-hmm. That's the problem is last year you knew and you weren't going to like what you were going to see and you knew it. This year you're not sure and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm going to like this or not.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure which is better.
Well, the results at this point, again, you would have liked to have taken that third against the Dodgers, but, tough team, tough series, the Seattle series, especially last 2 days, not that long ago, scored some runs, lineup got going, faced some good pitching, what they did to George Kirby, like really encouraging. Tatis, Machado, and Merrill all got a hit in the same day. Like, hey, that's progress. So I think part of like the question is like, how do you balance like what you saw again, just a 2-day span, you win on Monday, like is how much of this is like an indictment on where the Padres are offensively as a team, yada, yada, versus like they played the Dodgers. They faced Yamamoto. They beat Yamamoto. They faced Ohtani. They faced a lineup that's, starting to figure itself out. I'm really curious what the next 3 days look like. Can it be a continuation of the Seattle series? We've also seen in the past where there's a hangover effect from these Dodger series. So what does that look like? And then you got Philly, another team that's got some potential. Schwarber's hit like 20 bombs already. They've got some guys that are kind of coming around a little bit since Don Mattingly took over. So what does that look like? Because it is so easy, good or bad, to like overreact like a football, like an NFL fan on Monday, like overreaction Monday because it's a one game a week, because it's a Dodgers series. Like we draw so many conclusions. Let's see what happens against the A's. Let's see what happens against the Phillies.
Right there. And that's the thing about Major League Baseball season. They just play 3 of 162 games. Now, granted, what we said off the top is very valid, is that both of these managers were like, we want to win this series and we want to win it right now. And the moves that they made proved that. So this meant something. This was, playoff kind of caliber baseball. So which is great to see. But you're right. We now also are still prior to Memorial Day. So you can take that series and kind of put it in a vacuum and say, this is what is, and this was really fun to watch. And this was, this was a little bit of a, litmus test for what's moving forward. And now go right back to the grind of the season because you have a whole lot more of these games to make up for it with.
Mm-hmm. How'd you like Lucas Giolito on Sunday? You were front row for that in Seattle.
Ooh, he was good. He was really good. He was not going to break a plate of glass with his fastball anymore. But, man, that changeup is a freaking weapon. That changeup is really good. And he locates and he never gets too high or low on the mound. And he knows exactly who he is as a pitcher and what he wants to do and how he wants to attack a lineup. And he just goes about his business of doing that. And it's really impressive to see somebody who was throwing that many innings. You see Walker Buehler doing a lot of this too, kind of reinventing themselves on how they know they have to go after lineups and opposing hitters and really leaning into that and having success. He was really fun to watch.
Yeah, we got a chance to talk to him Monday. Really enjoyable guy to talk to.
Yeah.
And, I asked him about the velocity. He said, hey, that's one of the things we're working on. We're working on a lot right now. Kind of the unorthodox build up to the season, the strange off season might have contributed to that. And he was like, I don't want to make excuses. But it sounds like, he saw that he was sitting 90, 91 with this fastball, which sustainability comes up a lot with these Padres. Like that would be a sustainability question with Lucas Giolito. Can he have the results that he's having if that's where he's at? And so that'll be something to watch, when he makes his start this weekend and going forward. Are we seeing closer to 93 where he was a year ago, or is 90, 91 what we can expect? And he's really leaning on that changeup.
Yeah, as long as he keeps getting guys out, otherwise fine by me.
Other thoughts from let's see, from EB here. I think EB might be new to the chat. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Padres need to be worried about Jackson Merrill. I think Peter gave him a generous contract to.
Okay, get that out. This guy's an idiot.
Sorry,
whoever this is. Peter had passed away long.
Peter
before
had
Jackson
passed away. That's right. Sorry.
So yeah, don't do that.
Anyways, his question though about the year that he's having, his struggles.
Jackson's trying too hard, right? The physical skills haven't diminished. He's even said to himself, he's swinging through a bunch of hittable pitches because he's trying to do too much with them, right? Probably because he wants to A, justify the contract, and B, he missed a lot of time last year, and he is trying to make up for lost time. So he's just trying to hit everything 600 feet instead of doing what he does and putting the barrel on the ball and letting it go. That's what when he was a 20, 21-year-old rookie, he was just playing ball and everything went well for him. Now he knows that the team is relying on him. He's not just one of those guys. So he's trying to take too much of that on and produce too much at any given time. He's the one I'm not worried about, right? I'm worried about Tatis because of the mental thing. I'm worried about Manny because the physical skills are obviously diminishing and degrading at a much more rapid rate than anybody had realized. Jackson's the one I'm not worried about. He'll figure it out. He'll get right back to being him, and he'll start hammering those pitches because he'll throttle back that 1% to be able to get the barrel there a little bit more efficiently than he has been right now, swinging too hard.
Yeah. Good to see Manny homer. They needed that. That was a vintage Manny Machado home run. Just need a lot more of those.
Yeah. And by the way, I don't think he can bat flip anymore when he's not even hitting my weight.
It will be really interesting to see, not if, but when Tatis hits that first home run, what his reaction is like.
Well, he's got a Cohiba cigar in there ready to go. I've seen it. He said he was gonna smoke that thing when he hits his first home run. Now it may go bad.
I wouldn't blame him if he cartwheeled around the bases at this point. But there is, last year he went on a slump like this, hit a home run, and it was very understated. I don't even think he did the stutter step around third base. And so I think there is a little bit of the embarrassment, like, oh gosh, I know people are happy, but geez, it shouldn't have taken this long. Don't pay too close of attention to it. Just like hope that I do it again. And then my enthusiasm will build and you'll see me be a little bit more like myself. But I don't care at this point. Like if it gets him going, like, throw bat flip, bang your chest, stutter step 4 feet in the air around third base, do a backflip into the dugout. Like if it gets you feeling joy and feeling excited again, I'm fine with all of it.
Yep. That's, do what you got to do. Problem is if you do all of that, you better follow it up the next time.
You don't hit a home run for a month and a half.
I remember back when Lou Holtz was coaching Notre Dame, and it was starting to get to the point where everybody was like, gesticulating and celebrating. It was kind of becoming more of a thing in college football because obviously the NFL has had it for a while. Someone asked him about whether or not he was cool with his players doing that when they had success. And he's like, sure, I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. As long as you do the exact same thing when you drop a ball or you miss a tackle or you fumble, dude, as long as you do all that when your things are going poorly too, absolutely, by all means, knock yourself
out. Feelings on the rotation as a whole. Griffin Canning, tough beginning, but like settled in a little bit, kept them in the game enough. So like maybe that's encouraging. And then, Giolito, Michael King is looking like an ace. Tough one for Randy Vasquez. I felt like it looked a little bit more like previous year Randy Vasquez than this year Randy Vasquez. But, I feel like the rotation as it stands, if guys are able to stay healthy, Giolito can, come close to, multiplying what he did on Sunday. Or like, okay, I don't know if this is going to hurt them necessarily. Like, I think they'll be able to stay in games.
Yeah, Canning's trying to figure things out. I'm encouraged about Joe Musgrove, and I'm encouraged about Nick Pivetta. Them both being able to come back at some point. They should be some boost to the rotation. So that will, I think, be good. But I think with this Aroldis Chapman talk, I think there's legitimate chance.
Can he hit leadoff?
Why the heck not? Why not? Could it be any worse than what we have now?
Big, strong dude.
If they go out and get a guy like that, and all of a sudden that's your setup, man, that'd be nice. That'd be nice.
I want to see Rodolfo Duran behind the plate at least twice this weekend. I shouldn't say at least. Twice this weekend.
Taking some good swings all of a sudden.
I'm ready for that. He won them the game on Monday. Threw out a couple of base runners. Had the challenge. Homered over the weekend. Average-wise, productivity-wise. Similar spot to Freddie Fermin. Seen challenges. Freddie did a decent job, I think, as a hitter and as a catcher yesterday. But Duran's had some good challenges, some good moments behind the plate, good arm. Like, teams are gonna have to figure out about that arm. And I'm just at this point, is it gonna flip? Would it have flipped yesterday for them? Probably not. But he's done enough of the little things to, I think, earn himself more opportunities. And as long as Fermin's not hitting, and as long as Campy's hurt, and it'll be really interesting once Campusano comes back, like what that situation looks like. It'll probably just be Campy and Fermin, but I think you should give Rodolfo enough chances to really have a clear idea, or give him enough opportunities where you're like, okay, he might not be able to hit at this level, so we can probably stick with the 2 that we planned on from the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he's earned himself more playing time. There's no question about that. Absolutely no question about that. And even cooler for him is after spending darn near 12 years in the minor leagues before you finally get your first major league appearance, he proved to himself and in his life and his career that he can play at the major league level. And because he's a really good kid. And if for no other reason than that's awesome that he was able to get up and get these opportunities, because he's now shown that he in his lifetime was a legitimate major league catcher. So that's really neat.
And Michael King, after his start, said, Duran made me a better pitcher than I was today. So it's pretty high praise.
Yeah. And that really just goes to show you too, how much the guys in there like him and respect him.
Yeah.
It's because, I was up in Seattle on Sunday, and Giolito said Freddie was amazing to throw to. Like, amazing to throw to. So that's kind of the prerequisite now for the Padres to be a catcher is they're going to make their money and their bones of the pitching staff. And if you're a catcher, you better be able to have the guys, they say things about you like that you can handle the staff and make it easier for them to do their jobs.
Yeah. All right, got to hop off in about a minute or so. We've got see Bueller, Giolito, King this weekend, and then on the Phillies side, Luzardo, Nola, and Sanchez. So you're going to see some good arms next week. Day off Thursday after the Wednesday matinee, and then off to Washington to see James Wood and the Nats. So should be a fun week change ahead.
Can we get James Wood back for Tatis?
Is that a who says no situation? I think
the Nationals fans, obviously, and the entire Nationals organization,
unfortunately, would probably say no. Thanks everybody for watching and listening, and we will catch you next week.